Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. As the voice indicated, we will be recording this webinar for you today, and we'll follow up with a link as well as a copy of the slide deck after we've finished today. If we ask that you please, as you're able and willing to participate, we want this to be an interactive experience for you. So please feel free to unmute yourself as we ask questions throughout this presentation, or if you haven't yet, just say hello in the chat, or feel free to submit your questions. Susie or I will be checking it from time to time to make sure that we're addressing all of the things that you need. And as I said, we've got quite a bit that we're diving into today. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm really excited to be here with all of you this morning to talk about how we can evaluate and build on our past successes when we're looking at digital fundraising, and particularly strategies and tactics that we're using on digital giving days, and particularly the most famous, of course, being Giving Tuesday. So looking forward to diving into that topic with you all. My name is Lily Blauen. I am the program coordinator with Forefront. Excited to be actually broadcasting from our office in Chicago. Usually I am in our West Central office in Monmouth, Illinois, and I'm here with my colleague, Susie Lee.
Hi, everybody. Susie Lee. I'm the Director of Programs at Forefront, and I've been working on our Giving Tuesday and digital giving campaigns for about 4 years now. So thanks everyone for being here. I hope today will be really helpful.
This is our this is our second year doing this particular series, and the first time that we're offering this 200 level reflective course for those of you who have already experienced some kind of giving day or participated in Giving Tuesday, to help you reflect on your past challenges and successes, and then move forward intentionally in the coming months. So we'll tell you just a little bit more about our work with Giving Tuesday here at Forefront and our digital giving series, and then dive right into our topic. First, helping lay the groundwork for what we mean when we talk about evaluation and defining success, and what that looks like for your organization. Evaluating success, and then, as I said, looking at specific tools and strategies that you and your team can use to evaluate your past campaigns and set goals and make plans so that you can achieve all of the things, all of the goals that you set, not only this year, but down the road. And then we have worked in some time for Q&A at the end. So please do, as you come up with questions, feel free to ask them. We will be asking you questions from time to time, and have some time for discussion and breakouts as well. But we do want to leave that space at the end to make sure that we've covered everything that you need before you leave here today.
All right. Also, just for a bit of context setting so that we're all on the same page, can I get a quick show of hands, either a wave or an emoji or something in the chat, for folks that were familiar with the I'll Give campaign? Seeing a couple of thumbs up. Okay, good deal. A number of them. So for folks that are not aware, way back in 2014, Forefront specifically got involved with Giving Tuesday. And the reason we did was because we're a capacity building organization. We saw this movement for increasing generosity, and one of our core pillars at Forefront is increasing investment in the sector. So we kind of saw two big wins here. One, obviously, encouraging more folks to become philanthropic donors at any level, $5 to $5 million. And two, helping to support nonprofits engaging in folks digitally, because for a good, 15 years, the percentage of donations that are coming in online any day of the year as a percentage of the total amount that comes into organizations has increased year on year. And so we really wanted to make sure that every nonprofit in our community had the tools and the confidence to engage with digital donors, whether they're young donors, whether they're older donors, wherever they come in. So that's why we launched the I'll Give campaign, to really help folks get connected to this movement. As the years went by, it didn't need so much help getting awareness. It was everywhere. And we found that actually the majority of organizations that we work with were raising their own websites or PayPal or Facebook, and the platform itself was getting used less and less and less. So we shifted our strategy because we still are 100% committed to supporting the community in reaching these donors, but we realized that Giving Tuesday is not the only way to do that. So we've kind of shifted our focus away from this one-day campaign to making sure folks have the strategies and the knowledge to meet their goals any time of the year for digital giving and digital engagement. Any questions on that from folks? Like I said, we just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page as we move forward and why we do this series.
I'll add, just to reiterate, that really is our intention, is even though we will be talking directly about Giving Tuesday a lot, because it is coming up and it is a huge opportunity potentially for your organization. We have tried to design this course in a way that, again, as Susie said, you can take these tools, you can take these questions and ideas and apply them to any giving day and really to any online fundraising campaign. So you'll hear us say that probably quite a bit, but and if ever that isn't clear how maybe that translates, please let us know. We're happy to help bridge the gap. So, being that this is a conversation, a reflection and evaluation of your past campaigns, we're making a few assumptions about your experience with online giving and with giving days, and of course Giving Tuesday. And so what we'd like to do now is, if you're able to share in the chat how many years your organization has participated in Giving Tuesday. We're assuming that you've done it at least once. If you haven't, that's okay. This will I think that you'll still be able to walk away with useful information, but just to give us a sense of where everybody is in the room. Seeing a lot of threes here.
I saw a 9. That's amazing.
Wow. It's hard to believe it's been around that long. That's since the first year, right? That would have to be.
I think we might have lost a cord. I'm sure Lily will be back in just a second.
I'm here. It just said my battery was running low, but I'm plugged in. So just trying to figure out where the connection is. 1 to 2 years, several years, I think. Christina Kano, I'm just curious, is that, have you stepped into a new role in your organization? Esme, we're going to talk about that in just a little bit, that it's the oversaturation started in March. Okay, great. Well, hopefully that's just a really good point. If you're new, but your organization has done it, I think this will definitely still be relevant. You'll be able to take these back and take a look at what the organization has done in the past, and might help guide some of the questions that you ask as you consider what to do moving forward. So thank you everyone for sharing that. And get my, there we go. So it seems like, right, we don't just have 1 or 2 years participation, we've got several years. And since its inception in 2012, Giving Tuesday has become one of the fastest growing movements across the globe. And you can see here, we've just shared some information about the total increases just in donations that have been made since the first one. And this stops in 2019 with 511 million online donations in 2019. And we saw those numbers increase even in 2020. And online trends and preliminary data for the first 2 quarters in 2021 are even showing the continuation of that. So there's a lot of reason to believe that these trends are going to continue in this current year. Christina, I see your question. Is that a graph we'd be able to share with potential donors? I think that you could, if there was somebody maybe who you was maybe on the fence about Giving Tuesday. I know we see that a lot. Esme brought it up earlier, right? How is it oversaturated? Is it worth it? We're really going to talk a lot about that. But I think if you have somebody who isn't really sure what the impact of Giving Tuesday could be, that it would be worthwhile sharing this just to provide that broader overview. Here's the 2020 numbers. So we can see, right, even amidst a global pandemic, what we saw was really philanthropy rise above and beyond. And for those of you who, you know, have been in the sector for a while, you know that that's what we do. We show up, and it really shows here $2.47 billion given in the United States alone. And that's just the US Giving Tuesday. There's over 75 countries that participate across the globe. So that's a really huge number. And a great deal of that was raised online. But despite its growing impact, despite its popularity, and its continued success, each year organizations find themselves asking,
All right, well, in true pandemic fashion, it looks like we lost Lily. So you'll all bear with me. I'm going to pull up the presentation and keep things going. All right, folks. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties. I think this was the slide Lily was on. Can anyone either come off mute or let me know one way or the other?
She was on the one with the thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We never know what's going to happen these days, right?
Yep. No worries.
Okay, so again, forgive me. I was just getting some technical things situated on my end, so I may repeat some of what Lily had mentioned, but just to summarize again, we know that there's been incredible growth on Giving Tuesday. One of the huge benefits of that is just letting more folks that haven't thought about engaging become engaged in making donations and finding nonprofits that they want to be involved with. One of the really interesting things about Giving Tuesday is, according to research done both by the Giving Tuesday team and some other kind of philanthropy, I don't want to say watchdog, but research groups, they have found that Giving Tuesday is one of 3 days a year when you actively see individuals seeking out nonprofits to make donations to for the first time. So that is a huge benefit. Obviously, like folks have mentioned, there are certainly some things that are not benefits. I'm going to, it's like a couple of other folks might have gotten kicked out. I'm letting them in right now. So as I mentioned, global movement, there are lots of tools that are freely available. All of those things are a great opportunity. The chance to try new things is probably my favorite thing about Giving Tuesday. Some folks will make it a huge part of their fundraising goal for the year, and that is of course fine if it works for your organization. Another strategy that I really like is using it as an opportunity to try out things you might not have done before, whether it's reaching out to a community group, a neighborhood that you haven't been engaged in, whether it's reaching out to a different age group of donors you maybe haven't been engaged in, or just trying a different voice for the types of asks that you send out. Since Giving Tuesday is kind of separate from our annual giving calendar for most organizations, it can be that chance to try new things in kind of a lower pressure situation. All right, so let's go over to the con side. As folks mentioned earlier, it can be really difficult to stand out because there is so much competition. It does create this sense of, rather than abundance, of limited resources, which we really want to fight against, because we think that there is so much generosity in the world and there's so many resources that if we can all get aligned, we think there really is enough out there for everyone. And time versus dollars raised, this one we're really going to dig into in the second half of our presentation today. So I want folks to hang on to that thought. And then of course, the access and the connection to donors. You know, not all of the folks that are making contributions to our organization are participating that day. So again, that kind of ties into how much energy are we putting into it versus how much we're getting back. So these are all the things to weigh for any organization to decide if Giving Tuesday in particular is a day that works for you, or any digital giving day campaign. Again, we really truly believe that the principles of digital giving and reaching out to folks on an ongoing basis should still be a fundamental part of all of our outreach. All right, we always like to include this slide. Honestly, it's kind of a reminder for myself as well, because I think I was trained to be a very linear person of, I'm at point A, I want to get to point B, let's get the shortest distance. But sometimes that's not how life goes, and that's totally okay. All right, so when we're thinking about success for our organizations, we wanted to check in with folks. And again, if folks could share either in the chat or if you wanted to come off mute, whatever you're comfortable with, what goals did you set last year or in past years? Did you feel like you achieved them? And then the was it worth it will come back to, oh, Lily, yay. All right, Lily, we just got started on this page. I am going to turn it back. Are you good to go? All right.
Yes, thank you. Apologies, everybody having some technical difficulties.
This is why we have two presenters. We're all
That's
good.
right. So yeah, and I apologize, I didn't hear the lead into this, but when we're
Lily,
talking about,
yeah,
go ahead.
I just introduced the questions here, summarizing again the pros and cons from the last page, and starting to move into how we're reviewing what we set before and what we're going to do next.
Excellent. Yeah. So when we talk about success, and when we talk about it throughout this, you know, we are really talking about these questions, right? What were our goals? Did we achieve them? And then, was it worth it? And this isn't just a question for Giving Tuesday. This is for any of our campaigns. You see this with programming, with fundraising. And Susie's got some great tools and exercises we're going to dive into a little later to help you address that. And no matter what, success really, it has to be defined by you, right? Your organization. It's going to be unique to your organization, project at hand, and then it will be or should be rooted in your mission, in your vision, and in your history. And then, of course, what is that outcome that you want? And whether or not we're talking about our program or our mission impact, one of the things we hope you walk away with is that sense that even something that seems maybe as small or minor as a Giving Tuesday campaign can and should connect to your mission and to those overarching outcomes that you're hoping to achieve. Next slide, please. And the first step, of course, to achieving your goals is to define them. We know that simply by setting goals, you become more likely to achieving the outcomes that you want. So what were your goals last year? Did you define them? How did you define them? Did you make plans to track them? And did you have specific measures, right, that you would follow? And what did those look like? Next slide, please. And when we're talking about goals on Giving Tuesday, we're talking about a lot of things. And again, we know that the dollar amount raised on Giving Tuesday is the big ticket item. It is the thing that seems the most impressive. But I think you would have talked a little bit about this in the pros and cons, but Giving Tuesday has a lot of opportunity. It's a medium and a platform and a campaign where you can look at a lot of different needs, look at filling different needs and goals. So we encourage you, if you haven't in the past, to think about what those goals are or were beyond dollars raised. How many, and especially as you're thinking about, was it successful? Was it worth it? If all you were measuring were dollars raised, we encourage you to consider some of these other opportunities for growth and measures of success. For example, number of new donors engaged, whether or not past donors re-engaged or continued to participate. Did you develop a reoccurring donation or a giving program? We're seeing that and growing rapidly in popularity throughout the sector and in its effectiveness to really engage donors across various giving levels. Was your board engaged in a unique way, or is this an opportunity to engage the board? Right, total donors, average gift amount. There's lots of ways that you can think about success on Giving Tuesday beyond the dollars raised. So we're going to help kind of dissect the big picture. Next slide, please. So I'm curious, what does success mean to you and your organization? If you would feel free to unmute or share in the chat, what were some of the metrics or benchmarks that your organization has used in the past or currently uses to measure success on Giving Tuesday? What are some of the questions or evaluative metrics that you use to determine, is it worth it? We got Tiernan, my org has always used Giving Tuesday to engage young donors. Yeah, this is a great opportunity to reach new donors, especially those in the millennial or even Gen, what is the new one? Still the
Gen Z.
Z, yeah, Z, thank you. Gen Z, and you make a great point, right? Those who give $50 or less, and are early in their careers, it's easy enough to do that. And Giving Tuesday is kind of a great equalizer, right? You have just a little bit to give, And it's a great way to show that impact, right? To show how 10, 20, 30 people giving just a little bit on one day can have, an accumulative and collective impact. Yeah, thank you. All right. So beyond dollars, you want to think too, or beyond metrics, when you're thinking about evaluating your success and evaluating what to keep and what not to keep, you want to look too at your performance and effectiveness. So this is not only did you set goals, but did you set SMART goals? And if you're not familiar with that acronym, I assume all of us have encountered it in some form or another, but that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant is the R I like to use, and time bound. So these are goals that we can track and hold ourselves accountable to, goals that inspire us but don't become so daunting. Did you make a plan? Not just to achieve your goals, but I certainly know when I first started engaging with Giving Tuesday, it was sure, it's easy. Let's just post something on social media, and you might get lucky. You might find some success in that, depending on what you're trying to do. But did you know what you were trying to achieve? Did you make a plan? What kind of tools did you use? We know that not everybody has access to the same tools. So as you think about what your successes were, and maybe where some of the areas are that you want to improve, think about the tools that you're using and how they are impacting the plans that you're making and your outcomes. Are you using tools that are actually helping you achieve those goals? How did you engage board members and volunteers? What kind of events and activities did you host? When I think about that example of trying to engage young donors, if you find that you're not doing that, well, maybe it's not Giving Tuesday, maybe it's how you're trying to connect with them. So again, really pulling this into just that broader best practices in fundraising and donor relationships, coming back to that, are you setting yourself up for success? And then, of course, if the next slide, please. If setting goals, right, is the first step, we know that measuring them is the second and maybe the most important. And like I said, if you're setting goals, how are you measuring them? And are you deciding that beforehand? What are the tools that you're using to track progress towards your goals? Do you know what progress should look like? And this is, again, not to say if you're not doing it, shame on you, but this is an opportunity. I think we all saw this, especially over the last 18 months, that the more specific and compartmentalized our progress or our plans towards our goals were, the easier it was to look at where we were and say, we need to pivot, right? It's our favorite word. We need to adjust. Really measuring and how you measure progress is not only good when you're reflecting, but in that real time, right? Because we can see, oh, we want to reach new donors, a couple of hours in, if it's the day, or if you're somebody that's doing a week-long campaign, right? We can say, we're not engaging any board members yet. Let's go back and look at our process. Let's go back and look at our tools. Are we actually using methods and tactics that are going to help us achieve this? And then, of course, looking down the road, how can we measure and track our data and use it to understand even more about our campaign, about the value of participating or not participating in Giving Tuesday? So thinking about what story your data is telling you about Giving Tuesday and what data is available. And I think that's especially important. If you're an organization who's been focusing primarily on dollars raised, just go back and look at what data you do have, right? Can you see who your donors were? I know that's part of my frustration with Facebook fundraising as a platform for receiving donations. It is simple. There is a convenience to it, but you don't get a chance to see who the donors were. You can't follow up and build on that. So making sure that you've got tools that help you, again, achieve those goals. But go back and see what maybe what data you have that doesn't relate to goals that you set, and see if there were any happy accidents. Maybe you'll find that you didn't raise a lot of money, but you did engage a lot of new donors, or you've never had volunteers so excited to participate in something, and then see, maybe if you can reflect on why that was, or what was unique. Was it Giving Tuesday? Was it how you performed on that day? Was it the way you communicated? So lots of areas that we can look at and reflect on when we're thinking about how we define success and how we evaluate our own, the value of this campaign and our own progress within it. With that, we would like to invite you to connect with your peers in the room and just think a little bit about your past campaigns and whether or not you achieved what you set out to accomplish. And so as you think about that, the easier question is, was it worth it, right? Do you feel that you were successful on Giving Tuesday, and what contributed to those successes? What really stood out to you? And maybe what challenges did you encounter? We hope that this conversation will really set the stage when we move into the next part, where we talk about how you can use those tools and use that reflective exercise to start planning strategically for this year and hopefully many years after. So we're just randomly going to put you into rooms, and then we'll give you about 10 minutes. So we'll provide some reminders. Did you achieve what you set out to accomplish in past campaigns? What contributed to your success, and what challenges did you encounter? And if somebody is feeling particularly up to taking notes, we will invite you to share any insights or highlights that you had. You're certainly not required to do that, but if it's helpful, we love hearing what you have to say.
All right, I'm ready to open the rooms. Lily, you all set?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you had a robust discussion. Hope you got to know each other a little bit better, and hopefully came away with maybe some new ideas, or maybe confirmation of some old ideas, some affirmation. And this is by invitation only, but we would love to hear if anything really stood out to you in your discussion, if there was something that came up that you think that you want to discuss or share with the whole group, or if there was a particular insight that you came away with. Feel free to unmute yourself. I don't know if anybody's done that yet. We welcome you to share your voice.
Hello, everyone. I'm Claudia Marchand from Northern Illinois Justice for Our Neighbors, and I had a couple of insights. I think I always thought I didn't know how to use the Facebook donate button, or infrastructure, and that we were doing something wrong to not capture like the names of people. But it was confirmed that you can't you can't do that on Facebook, and we really do have some board members that are adamant about like having a donate button and doing it on Facebook. But this is good information, right? Because we have different goals, I think, for the organization, right, from year to year. So it's an important I think piece of information. There were also other things about extending. How do you extend to capitalize a little bit more on Giving Tuesday? Some are doing it through the end of the year, some are doing it a couple of days before, a couple of days after. So that was also good. And then there's a question, Susan. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I don't know if you want to ask your question, because I think I'm intrigued by it too. So, maybe someone knows.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I was just asking, apparently Apple mail, they recently updated the privacy of their mail. And as I'm sure many of us are used to, is we track open rates in our email messages, and especially for, Giving Tuesday and digital campaigns, open rates are so important, and for drip campaigns, et cetera. And so Apple Mail just changed it so that open rates may not be accurate, or you may not be able to track open rates as much. And so I was just curious if anyone had read about this, heard about this. I just saw an article about it, and that got me all fired up because it's a big change. And so I was curious if anyone had any thoughts on it.
I had heard about that, but I don't fully understand what the impact of that is going to be on how we use those tools. So Susie, I don't know if you can shed light on that. If not, we'd be happy to look it up. And if anybody in the room can shed any light too, please feel free to share.
Yeah, I have another note about the Facebook bit, but I actually don't have additional detail on Apple Mail. So I'm making a note to look more into it with our communications team, and hopefully we'll be able to share something out when we follow up from this presentation. But as Lily said, totally open. If anybody else on here already has the inside scoop, feel free to share.
Yeah, I'm very curious about now that you've asked that, is that if you're using Apple Mail directly, or just anybody with Apple Mail has that added layer of security. So even if you're using something like MailChimp or Constant Contact or some other kind of a customer service management system or communication tool, it doesn't matter. I'm going to bypass that. Yeah, I think that's something everybody needs to know about.
So the article that I had seen, it said that that basically it has to do with, how the EU has certain data privacy laws, and that Apple's trying to stay with it. And so basically it has to, again, I'm not a tech person, I'm a fundraiser, but it has to do with the pixels related to open rates that I guess MailChimp and other systems, they like put these invisible pixels so that you can track the open rates. And then they are stopping to do that. And so, and I think it has to do with, like, even if your email is a Google email or Yahoo or whatever, but if you have an iPhone, I think it may still impact it because you're reading it on your iPhone. So, and again, it like just happened late last month. So I feel like it was just kind of happened, and we're starting to learn about it.
Yeah, and that you bring up an interesting point, just thinking about phones, because what we know from 2020 and the early data in 2021 is that about 60% of all activity, particularly donations and how individuals are engaging with nonprofits, is happening from a cell phone. It's not happening, I think it's less than 10% happens from a PC or a computer anymore. So that could have some pretty big ramifications just across a lot of what we do, potentially, how we do it. Well, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, we'll definitely, as Susie said, connect with our team and see what we can find out and follow up as best we can. Anybody else? Oh, go ahead.
So I wanted to, yeah. Oh, did we hear somebody else? Okay, I wanted to also add, Claudia, that was such a great point about Facebook. But to be sure we're sharing like the full context. So the vast majority of nonprofits are unable to get that data. You're absolutely right. And that is what we said. There are some cases, it's usually very big organizations that have verified Facebook accounts. And I think you also have to pay extra, but it is possible to get the data. It's really not accessible to the vast majority of nonprofits. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm sharing the full picture of context. But I mean, the other thing is, both with this Apple point and with Facebook data sharing, it changes every single year. And we definitely try to stay on top of it and share as much information as we have. But that's definitely one of the challenges for all digital giving, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for that additional information. That makes sense because we were going through I mean, we're a very small org, right? We have like 1,500 contacts in our database, but you know, we started the process to get that. I guess what you're talking about is like when you get that official like donate button, so that you know you're verified and all that. And it's like been years that you know our interns, when they're around, they try and we get nowhere. So that makes a lot of sense.
Any other highlights or insights or questions that came up in your discussions? Anybody just absolutely done and frustrated and over over Giving Tuesday, over Giving Days?
That was my approach like 3 years ago, but I think I've learned. I've let myself learn. Right, I have become more because I am not a tech person whatsoever, and it's hard, right? Because you're competing, but you know when you find that, you know when you kind of find your, you know, your niche, your what you have to offer, you know, and how you can, I guess, you know, highlight your organization when there's tons of organizations, right? Trying to do the same thing, right? And we all have something special to bring. I think that that for us was also a game changer. I shared that we combined our Giving Tuesday with World AIDS Day, and then we shared one of our client stories, right? We made sure that we did very sensitively, you know, but we were able to do that, and that kind of gave our, you know, gave it a little kind of more meaning, right, to our organization. That's how we personally connected. So it worked well for us last year that way. And I think we're doing the same. Again, we also had a matching campaign going on with the Giving Tuesday, which helped as well.
Nice. Well, and Claudia, that tees us up perfectly. Thank you so much, because second half, what we're going to be really doing is taking a look at what are the things we've done in the past and what works for us as individual organizations. We plan to take a little bit of a break here, but we could also just give folks more time back. So I'm going to do another, either give us a thumbs up in the chat or just throw that emoji up on your picture to tell us thumbs up if you are good to keep going, and I guess nothing if you really want that break.
And a lot of thumbs. I think the thumbs have it.
Okay, great. Well, and of course, as always, you know, as we've seen in this presentation today, life happens. So take care of yourself, whatever you need to do. And we'll just keep on moving for now. Thank you. All right. So I am a big data nerd. So I'm very excited to share this next couple of slides with everyone. So again, we want to be very clear that dollars raised on Giving Tuesday or on any giving day are not necessarily the be all end of all of the campaign. However, it is a very, very common goal. So we definitely want to cover that for everybody that's interested. So one of the things that was really nice about having some statewide data from our platform was being able to take a look at benchmarks. A question I get all the time, have gotten for years, is what kind of goals should we set for our dollar amount? So one of the things we did was we took a look here, and forgive me if it's a little bit difficult to read. So we've got on the bottom those numbers. So on the left-hand side of this chart, you'll see 0 to 99,999. So, and then on the right-hand bottom, it's 10 million plus. So that scale at the bottom is the budget size of the organization. Then the two things that we looked at for data points were the average dollar raised for the size of the organization and the average goal amount set. So you'll notice for most of these that the average goal is significantly higher than the average dollar amount raised. So there were a couple of things we learned from this. One, it's really hard to set a goal at all and to know what is typical. So when we gathered this information, we wanted folks to have an idea of what the range is. And actually on the next slide, I'll be showing you the maximum amount raised for each organization by size, because that'll give you even a little bit more in terms of benchmarking. But the other thing I really wanted to focus on here is talking about what number is set for a goal. We specifically did some research and found that the most common goal set, if folks set a goal at all, was $10,000. What does $10,000 mean? It's just a number. It doesn't mean anything to me in my heart and my soul. And we know that folks, particularly on Giving Tuesday, particularly for giving days, are really interested in giving what they feel is an actual gift. They like to imagine it as a tangible gift. So setting goals, we simplified this suggestion to set a goal that does not end in zero. And what we meant by that is something that directly connects to your work. So if you're saying, you know, we are a program that provides art enrichment to the community. Okay, well, 6 months of art supplies costs $4,322. Don't round it to $4,000. Let folks know $4,322, because that connects so much more realistically, authentically to how folks, you know, think about their own budgets. And you can even break that up. Of course, if you want to have smaller donation amounts, you can say, okay, a $15 donation would allow us to purchase things like 2 cans of paint, or if you're an organization that maybe is taking the elderly on excursions, you know, it would provide gas money for 1 trip. Those really tangible things that can equate to specific gifts. The next year we found that after taking some of this research and sharing it with the community, 68% of nonprofits with a specific goal raised, the amount that nonprofits with goals raised above nonprofits without a goal. So 68% more raised if they had a specific goal that ended in not a zero. It connected back to their work directly. So I don't want to delay any more this other benchmark number, and these get even smaller. So this sort of greenish yellow column that now that we have on the right-hand side, that is the maximum amount raised by organization size. So let's take a look at the organizations that were between, their budget was between $100,000 and $250,000. So this is back again, that first year, most of them were setting $10,000 goals because they didn't have any benchmarking data to work with. The average amount raised was $2,800, but that doesn't mean your goal had to be $2,800, because the most successful organization in that budget category raised $27,000. So again, these are obviously very wide ranges, but we wanted to give folks something to work with, just to let you know what we have seen is possible. And when those goals are set, that it's so much more likely that you're going to be able to hit a specific goal than a generic number. Any questions on this data, or folks want to share dollar amount goals that they have used? Has anyone used the non-zero goal amount for their organization and found it successful or not successful?
Hey, Susie.
Hi.
Can you hear me? This is Rose.
Yeah.
Question. I mean, I think having a goal is always a good idea because it's something you can promote to your public. Most, and I heard this in the breakouts, right, have very modest goals because they'd rather be successful and say, yeah, we reached this smaller goal, than to say, okay, let's reach for the stars and then not reach that goal. So I think having a goal is always more helpful, because at least it's a target that people can see. The question I have is in the column that says average goal set, like for the first one, it's really small. So it's like $7,634. What does that
Yes.
number mean? Is that the average of the goal setting or average of the goal received, the average of the funds received just with a goal?
Thank you for that clarified question.
Okay.
That's just the average for the goal that was set. So there were, it was much more common for the smallest organizations to have a goal under $10,000 than for others, because you'll notice that almost every other category is close to $10,000 because that was a shockingly common generic goal.
Yeah.
So yes, the one thing that we have unfortunately never been able to really get super clear data on is that direct comparison to goal set and goal accomplished. The reason for that is we are not Facebook and in everybody's business. So we don't know, if you have PayPal and you have Facebook donations and you have website donations, there's no way for us to know like how all those numbers pair up for everybody exactly.
And just to clarify again, this is for all digital giving, right? Regardless of platform or regardless of reason, right? It's just anything that was digitally donated.
So these were Giving Day campaigns.
Oh, Giving Day campaigns. Okay,
Yes,
specifically.
yes.
Okay.
So these were specifically at the time a one-day campaign. And most of them were from Giving Tuesday specifically. So yeah, it's not looking at their entire year. It's just looking at a one-day giving campaign.
I was thinking about that 10,000 or 20. I mean, even the 10 million organizations average goal seems pretty modest comparatively, but it makes me think of the donor pyramids. If you've ever seen like how you determine the number of asks you need to make. And I'm thinking, 10,000, you can easily pair that, that's $100 from, or $1,000 from 10 people, or, $100 from 100 people, no, 1,000 people. But, maybe that's just a number that seemed easiest or seems kind of the easiest when you're trying to set a goal and you're not quite sure what the cost of your needs actually are.
All right, well, we'll keep moving along. If other questions come up for folks, please feel free to enter them in the chat or use the raise your hand option. We're really happy to bring folks into the conversation anytime. All right, so the next piece we want to look at is high impact strategies. And this particular graph came from mindtools.com. There are lots of impact action priority matrices all over the internet. This is just the graphic that I liked the best of the ones I was looking at. But what I really like about this is taking the time to think about, okay, so I have 16 different tasks I want to do to accomplish my digital giving goals. How do I know which ones are actually worth putting the time into? Because I know very common amongst nonprofit folks, and definitely true for myself personally, is committing to more than I actually have time to do. Sometimes that's my choice, and sometimes it's the life that we live. The tool folks can use to try to really prioritize those goals and maybe cut some of them. But maybe at least figure out which ones are going to have the highest return. So again, over here on the vertical axis, we've got impact. So we're going from low impact to high impact. And again, this could be really whatever you want to define impact as. So when I've filled these out in my own work, sometimes it is dollars amount. Sometimes the impact is, the number of people that opened the email, or the impact is the number of folks that attended a program, since I work on our programs. So you can measure that impact however you want, but you're seeing for any given task, is the impact of that task low impact or high impact? And then on the horizontal axis, we've got the effort of the task, again, from low to high. And effort, I usually equate to as time. It could certainly be dollars again, if you're spending money on whether ads purchased. One example I'll share from our Giving Tuesday campaign several years ago, we did an experiment, because that's one of the things that we think is hugely helpful about Giving Tuesday. So we did an experiment and we spent the same amount of dollars on YouTube ads and Facebook ads. And what we discovered was it cost 200 times as much to get someone to our website from YouTube ads as it did from Facebook ads. So the next year, unsurprisingly, we did not spend any dollars on YouTube ads. You know, it wasn't a huge investment that first year, but it was a great learning lesson. And not that, you know, YouTube ads can't be effective for other projects. I know from past work that I've done when I had much larger budgets to work with, they can be really impactful, and for public awareness, they can be really impactful. But in terms of actually getting someone to click through and come to our website, that was our goal. They didn't meet the goal, so we didn't do it again. So that's just sort of one example. That one was dollars spent. But I definitely think, especially for Giving Tuesday and thinking about what's worth it and what's not, time put in is also hugely important measurement. So I wanted to see if we could get a couple of examples, maybe from the room, and then we could place them together, or you can place it yourself, of a task that you did and which of these 4 boxes it might fall into. And if you'd like us to share another example, we can do that too.
And I'm watching the chat, so feel free to share it in the chat.
All right, I'm not hearing anything from anyone yet, so I'll share one more example before we move on to the next slide. 2 things that we were looking at a few years ago when we were thinking about how we connect with folks on digital giving. One project that we did was holding open office hours for questions. So we would set our staff up to take calls for 20 or 30 minutes at a time for days on end leading up to Giving Tuesday. And we had no data whatsoever to show that the folks that came to those did significantly better than folks that didn't. Oh, I see an example in the chat. Greg, thanks for sharing. It says, we tried a Giving Tuesday phone-a-thon last year and it ended up being high effort but low impact. Lessons learned. Great, thank you. And I can share another converse example that we had a drip campaign that we've done for a number of years related to digital giving that took a relatively low amount of time for us to set up, but had huge impact in terms of folks using ideas and having lots of success and changing the way they set their goals and ran their campaigns. So that one is pretty clear cut. It was big impact, low time versus lots of time, low impact. So we were able to say, you know what, this one is not working the way we're doing it right now. We're going to cut that one and save some sanity for our staff.
And I'll add just quickly, thinking about the role boards or internal stakeholders can sometimes play when you're trying to prioritize things. Using tools like this, even if maybe you know how something might turn out, it can be a really great way to help other members of your team understand and visualize the decision-making process and why you're not, as cool as a phone-a-thon or TV live phone-a-thon might seem, why you've made the choice not to do it, and maybe help them participate in the process a little bit more.
Awesome. And I see another example, Bridget sharing. It says, we create an end of year campaign and kick it off on Giving Tuesday and keep it up for the next 6 weeks. High effort, medium impact. So yeah, those are always the tricky ones where it's not clear cut. I'll talk a little bit later about prioritizing all of the different goals and tasks that we set for ourselves. So we'll come back to that one in a little bit, but thank you for sharing that example. All right. And this is actually another prioritization grid. I pulled this one off of Lazaro's blog, and I really like it. One, because it's kind of funny. I love that buy a cup of coffee instead quadrant. But sometimes it's not so much about the impact. Another thing that we have to judge that's related to our time spent is how urgent things are. So I just wanted to share this one as another way of thinking about prioritizing the tasks that we're doing. Of course, when you have just a short list of tasks to do, it can be really clear, like we have a presentation tomorrow, we need to be sure that it's ready, or we have a donor email that's going out tomorrow, it has to be done today. But other things like thinking about wanting to set up a photo booth, maybe for an event or an activity, maybe that falls into the not important and not so urgent. And even though it would be super cool, maybe we can buy a cup of coffee instead. So we're really trying to think at forefront, for our own team, as well as for the community, especially this year when we are all burnt out on top of burnt out, is how can we do things that have an impact and also keep us all sane? So hoping this tool will be useful for folks in deciding how to spend your time this year. Okay, now this is one of my favorite tables in probably in the world. It is a prioritizing tool. If anyone is familiar or has used What Color Is Your Parachute, you might be familiar with this one. So I originally came across this when I was trying to decide what I wanted to go to grad school for. And the thing I like about this grid is you can use it to make any decision. And it's really great when you have more than 3 or 4 items or concepts that you need to decide between. So I'm going to walk us through a live, check the time here. Oh, we're doing really well. I'm going to stop sharing here and open up an Excel document so we can actually walk through one together. Just a moment. Uh-oh. There we go. All right. Some of you got a little bit of a glimpse. I had one already filled out in case we were running really behind on time, but I think this will be more fun to do as a group. So I'm gonna pull the chat up over here. So, okay, I simplified this down to just 5 items. I have used as many as, I actually used this when I was trying to figure out how to pick what was important when my household was buying a new home. And there were 21 items on our grid. There's no way I would have off the top of my head been able to figure out that priority list. So this just really helps get it together. So to make things a little bit fun, the values I put in were all about choosing a vacation. So something that we could, I'm sure, all use right now. So what you do with this grid is you compare each item to each other item in the list first. So for example, you'll see that number 1 is sunshine. And so you don't need to compare sunshine to sunshine. That would be silly. So that box is grayed out. So the first one we're going to look at is which one is more important, sunshine or restful? And this is thinking right now. So we're going to do this kind of quick and dirty, see if I can get some votes in the chat. If you had to decide today on a vacation, any vacation you could take, which one is more important to you today? Number 2 is restful. Number 1 is sunshine. Okay, got one for each. All right, so far I'm seeing sunshine. So we say sunshine is most important, so we put a number 1 in this box. All right, next one is adventure versus sunshine. Which one is more important to you today? Number 3 means adventure and number 1 means sunshine. Adventure, adventure. Interesting. All right, I saw more adventures first. And remember, right now we're just comparing adventure and sunshine. Those are the only 2 we're looking at. Okay, so then next, we're down here looking at adventure versus restful. So we're just comparing those 2 right now. If you had to choose between adventure versus restful. All right, I'm seeing adventure, adventure. Okay, I think adventure is winning. Like I said, we're not doing this super scientifically. All right, next one, we are comparing cultural opportunity versus sunshine. Okay, seeing a lot of 4s, we're gonna go with that. Cultural opportunities versus restful. Lots of 4s, all right. We like to learn, I love it. All right, this time cultural opportunities versus adventure. Ooh, this one's hard. Okay, I've got 3 4s in a row, so I'm gonna go with that one again. Okay, we're getting there, guys. We're almost at the end. Good food versus sunshine. I love it. I love it. I'm on the same page with all of you. Good food versus restful. All right. I feel like I really am connecting with the group right now. Good food versus adventure. A little bit of adventure, but a lot of good food. All right, last one, good food versus cultural opportunities. I know that's a hard choice, but I'm seeing lots of 5s. I feel, yeah, it is lunchtime. I respect that. All right. Thank you all for your participation. That made it a lot of fun. Okay. Little bit of a whoops. I just made the chat enormous. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we've got all our numbers in. How do we actually get our priorities? This probably put in one more step than is really necessary, just because I personally have dyscalculia and I mix numbers up a lot. So you may only need 2 steps here, but the process that we're going to go through is we're going to count how many times each number shows up. So number 1 was sunshine. Over here, we only have one number 1 in the grid. So there's just a 1. Number 2 was restful. And I'm really surprised, but there are 0 votes for restful. That's fine. Again, this is just a fun activity. Adventure. We've got, yep, 2, thanks, Lily. Cultural opportunities showed up 3 times. And good food, thank God for good food, showed up, oh, I did that wrong, showed up 4 times. Okay, so then the one that got the most votes is the top priority. So first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and like I said, most folks may not feel the need to do this last part, but then what I like to do is copy them into order so I actually see the order. So if we all were going on vacation together today, we would want to find a place that had, above all, good food, cultural opportunities, and then lower on the list would be adventure, sunshine, and restfulness. So those are our priorities for finding a vacation. Okay, so I hope that was fun for folks. We will send out an Excel spreadsheet that has that original grid so that you can use it to make any decision that you need to make. That is the prioritizing tool that I think is the best thing in the world. So before I go on, any questions or anything folks want to throw in before we move on to the next one?
I can really see this being useful, and hopefully you're all kind of thinking about what some of your goals for this year are, or maybe have been in the past, and placing them in each. You know, can we feasibly, you know, get new donors, raise $10,000, engage our board, and, you know, maybe, but thinking about which one, where you're going to put your time and energy. I think this is a really helpful tool, and to help you kind of understand where you need to invest first. And again, having that visual piece of logic to follow, or that model to follow, when you're helping others on the team understand why you've made the decisions the way that you have.
All right. We're going to move on to another tool here. And this is a little bit less of a tool in the sense of the last one where we had an actual spreadsheet, but more of just reminding us of a way of thinking about our goals for individual projects. So, right, we've got the big circle here is our vision and our mission for the whole organization. Strategic plan is that next level of 3 to 5 year work. We've got our operating fiscal plan. That's typically, it's a 1-year work plan. Some organizations I know do 2. And then if we're talking about a giving day or digital giving as an individual project, that's kind of this lowest bubble here, just as the smallest time scale. So that's where we're talking about today. But ideally, the goals that we're setting for these individual projects feed all the way up into that. So I found another tool that I liked how it kind of laid it out. And I will share this one. This one came from 4weekmba.com. There are a lot of things on this site that I really enjoy taking a look at. They can be, I will say, you know, they're pretty simplified, but, you know, obviously I think an MBA program typically is a 2-year program. So something that is shortened to be a 4-week program is going to have to be pretty simplified. But what I like about that is they have a lot of these graphics that kind of capture an idea and let you kind of use it however it applies to your organization. So looking at this one, thinking about, you know, that sort of process of focusing and committing to priorities, then we move kind of around the circle to aligning the team and connecting in the work. Of course, it's got that continuous performance measurement, which is just thinking about, you know, how are we evaluating? How are we holding ourselves accountable? Down at the bottom here, I actually can't see that bubble right now. Let's see if I can move this. There we go. Tracking for accountability, and then stretch for amazing. I like that part a lot too. But then within this circle, so we've got the process that goes around and around and around, but we always want to think about building up. Okay, we've got this tactic. So again, let's talk about, I can think of the drip campaign as one example. Well, one of the things I mentioned in the very beginning, our goal at Forefront for engaging in digital giving is making sure as many nonprofits in our community have the tools that they need. So when we think about the drip campaign, that was, I think the biggest year that we had was over 700 individuals that were receiving that all across the state. So that definitely fed directly into that objective of engaging folks. And then thinking about our strategic goal of the organization, that strategic level would be the increasing investment in the sector. So if we've got a tactic that is helping lots of folks to connect to better strategies for digital giving, then we're helping to increase investment in the sector. And Forefront's mission overall is building a vibrant social impact sector for all the people of Illinois. So if we're connecting to lots of folks, we're helping them to use the best strategies they can, which helps them then to increase investment in the sector. The better the investment, the better the processes we all have going on, the strongest and more vibrant community we have. So I can clearly see the connection directly from a drip campaign for digital giving all the way up to our ultimate mission at Forefront. I also wanted to pull over just this kind of mission and vision piece that's a little bit small on the screen. So I have another one here where I blew that up a little bit. So I just kind of walked through really quickly how one individual tactic can feed all the way up into the mission. But this is another way to actually break it down. And sometimes we do this, well, usually we do this on an annual basis so our operating plan is based on our mission and vision, and then we have strategic goals for each one. So you can actually work backwards as well, whichever seems to make more sense to you, okay, here's our mission, here's a specific goal, here's our objective that we want to accomplish. What is the thing that we're going to have to do in order to make that objective come true? So I like just being able to see this process. It helps me when I'm thinking. I always say I like to start with an example rather than starting from scratch. I think most folks would probably get to this on their own eventually, but we don't have eventually, we have deadlines. So I hope these different tools and these different ways of looking at things help you prioritize which tactics and strategies you're using for your campaign this year. Any questions about those objectives and key results, or going back to that kind of pyramid from tactics and tasks up through the mission and vision? Hearing none, we will move right along. Okay, so what we want to do next is put it all together and have actually some working time together. And again, we know that some folks really prefer to work on their own, and some folks would like to use the kind of brain trust we have in the room today. So what we're going to do is set up two different, actually, we'll stick with the three different breakout groups. If you would prefer to work on your own, you can just go on mute and stay off camera and do your own thing. We will stay in these groups this time for about 15 minutes. What we'd really like for folks to talk about are specific goals that you have. If dollars raised is a priority, have you thought about the benchmarks? Did the information today help you at all? Does it change anything? Are there other benchmarks that you use? Can you prioritize some of the tasks you have ahead of you by effort versus impact? And also, are your goals aligned with mission and annual goals of the organization? So I'm going to go ahead and set up those breakout rooms. Like I said, we'll stay in these groups for 15 minutes. And if you prefer to work on your own, absolutely feel free to do so. Just go on mute and off camera, and it'll be your time to work through some of these questions on your own. And then we'll come back together at the end of that 15 minutes to share out. All right, so I'm going to recreate the rooms so that hopefully they'll be a little bit more random. Slightly different group than we had last time. We'll have 15 minutes. All right, we're going to send you all to rooms now. Ooh,
I was muted. I said, nice timing on that. Doing good on time.
I had thought about doing breakout groups for some of the other pieces, but given the energy of this group, I thought we would lose
Mhm.
the folks. So
Something I think we'll might want to keep, and I don't know where we'd want to keep this, but in thinking about how we're tracking our own success here, not just like how, the benchmarking of how many people show up versus who signs up. But I know a couple of people did just jump off, but I think it's fine. But then thinking like, okay, of the 24, I think it's 22, if we don't count ourselves that we started with, how many, stayed in the breakout room? That we can say, that 18 people had a really in-depth experience. So I don't know if there's like an official place that we logically could put that, but I don't know.
yeah, I've been thinking about that too. I definitely think that's something as a team we should chat about when we start thinking about, well, I guess that's a different one from setting up programs, but our program retreat that will happen at some point.
Wait. Well, yeah, maybe it's in the I mean, we wouldn't be able to grab it easily. I don't think. Well, depends on how you export it. But in Salesforce, I know there's like a notes section. So maybe there's a post event, I don't want to say survey, but kind of like a report out that's pretty short, but that's just like, here's some supplemental data that might be useful as we talk to donors or as we're thinking about our own, impact beyond just providing the resources. Maybe that's a place to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the other thing that we don't do very often, but we can, is actually add fields.
That's true.
So yeah, that's something we could for sure explore.
Yeah, I'm thinking even just knowing like how many of our workshops have like an interactive or peer learning. I mean, I know we just as a rule try to do that because that's something that we value, but
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I also think we definitely need, Lisa and I have talked about this for a while. We definitely want to redo the program evaluation survey. But I have a feeling that not that there's going to be like direct notes from the strategic plan that says like the evaluation survey needs to be this, but I feel like everything else, it would make sense to wait till we have some more clarity on that.
Yeah, I agree. How much time do we have? Because I really need to use the ladies' room.
Yeah, we've got 11 minutes still in the group, so you're totally
perfect. I'm gonna go run and do that really quickly.
I'll be here.
Thanks.
Okay, well, there was the disaster.
Oh, no.
Lemon had 2 accidents, and then Sam wanted to tackle her, and then I had to clean it up.
Oh, no.
It's fine. We have 2 minutes before people come back.
If you're wearing an Apple Watch, maybe it might be telling you to breathe right now.
I have Fitbit. We're an Android.
Fitbit family.
Yeah.
You would be. A kid. Oh yeah, no, I won't be attending that. Sorry. Boodle-doo-doo.
All right, and then I think after the share out, I don't think I have any other materials, so we should be able to give folks a few minutes back in their day, which is nice.
Yeah, we'll see if they need anything else or have any other questions or curious in the share if they've come up with maybe benchmarks that they don't have, or they, they realize that maybe they need, if there's any that we can connect them with the library or follow up with. Do you follow association trends?
Yes, but I think I finally just put them directly into my other box because they're the ones with the workshops that are like $300 a piece, right?
All the time, yeah.
Yeah, because I think they're they also have like corporate associations.
Yeah.
All right, they're gonna get the 60-second notice in a second. And then we'll wrap it up.
Oh my God.
All right, I see some folks back in the room. We'll give
Welcome.
a chance. Hope those conversations went really well. For those of you that are already back, please be thinking if there are any highlights that you want to share. I know we've got a lot of research that we've done, but there's a lot of experience and wisdom in the group. So we want to make sure to provide space for all of you to share with each other. All right. I think everybody is back now. Again, this is by invitation, not mandatory, but please let us know what came up in your groups. What were kind of the highlights of the conversations? And as always, feel free to share in the chat or take yourself off mute. Were there any questions that came up that you want to go back to from earlier conversation today? I think everybody's ready to get their lunch. That is okay. We'd love to have one brave soul share share from your conversation?
Hey, Susie, this is Rose.
Thank you.
I'll be the brave soul. So there were 3 people in our group, although only 2 of us really spoke. And to be honest, we looked at the first question and that's all we talked about was like benchmarking data. And back then how we would look at email, like constant contact or email marketing and just have to compare that. And now the triple work of having to look at Facebook insights, Twitter insights, Instagram insights, TikTok insights, YouTube insights, right? It's like you could really get bogged down with the analysis. And, I think part of it is you have to prioritize which digital means really resonate with your audience, but then there's also not ignoring the up and coming donors, right? Like we were talking about TikTok, and that's not really that's really for the younger generation, you kids in this room. And I could say that because I am not a kid, but you don't want to ignore it either because they're your future donors, right? And I was just, the last thing I mentioned is sometimes my giving is determined of where my parents gave, right? So if I knew my parents gave to this, nonprofit, I'm more comfortable giving to that organization because my parents supported it. And so you can't really ignore the youth. And so how do we balance all of that? And the other part is, what does benchmark really mean? When we look at Constant Contact or MailChimp and how they give those insights, they're really benchmarking you against a really broad scope. And, they say, okay, the average click rate is 17%, but what is it for nonprofit? What is it for health nonprofits? What is it for, food pantries? They really don't, it's like you got to take it with a grain of salt because it's such a broad context that they're giving us this insight data.
Well, I really appreciate that note because yeah, absolutely. It's so easy to get bogged down in all of it. One thing I know that we've started doing on the programs team here at Forefront is, since we've been collecting data for a few years now, being able to benchmark against ourselves. And of course, 2020 and 2021 are really throwing that curve. But being able even to look at, years from now, like we talk about, what do we want to collect now that will inform us next year or the year after or the year after. So always not feeling like, oh, if I haven't done it, it's a total failure, but being able to compare just to your own performance. But yeah, thank you so much for that example. I'm sure it resonates with many other folks in the room. Thank you. All right, well, we're totally happy to let folks get to lunch a little bit early. I will again say that this recording will be posted along with the slides on our digital giving series page at myforefront.org. We'll also follow up, of course, to everybody that was registered and make sure that the slides and the recording are sent to you directly as well. And with that, we're going to say thank you very much. If there are any other questions, oh, I see something in the chat. Oh, breakouts recorded? No, breakouts are not part of the recording. So all the conversations in there are private. And of course, the chat also is not included in the recording. All right. Thanks all for being here. And we know this was a long haul and we appreciate your time. And I hope you have good food and rest and sunshine at lunch if that's possible. All right, take care. Have a good day, everyone.